we cannot hear you. Uh, can you hear me, James? No, no, Jeff. We cannot hear you. We don't see you also.
Can you hear me now, James?
Yes, perfect, perfect. Loud and clear. Thank you.
I'll figure out
We can hear you. Thank you. So Jeff, by 9 o'clock here, 7 o'clock there, we will begin with a prayer. Jay Cruz, one of our regional coordinators in the academy, will offer the prayer. And then I will just do a little welcome and turn the time to you. We are truly excited and grateful and honored to have you with us this beautiful Sunday morning in the Philippines. Not too warm in Cebu. We just had, oh, there you go. Now we can see you too.
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. All right, so we are now live on Facebook as well. All right, it's 9 a.m. Brothers and sisters, good morning and welcome to this very special webinar that we're having this beautiful morning. We have invited a very special speaker who will be sharing with us his expertise, and we are truly looking forward to that one. We will begin this special webinar with an opening prayer, and we would like to invite Jay Cruz. Please unmute, and he will offer us the prayer. Go ahead, Jay.
Okay, sir. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this another wonderful webinar that we will have today. And we're also thankful for our speaker for his time and preparation in his topic on how to build, preserve savings in this time of crisis. We also ask thee to help us find applications of this learning into our life. And we pray thou guide us throughout all this webinar that we have. We pray also for safety and for thy love to us. And this we pray in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Once again, brothers and sisters, welcome to this truly special webinar that we're having right now. I think one of the things that we're learning is that this crisis is going to be long term. And so we know that we have been doing everything we can to really go through this crisis, not just to survive, but to truly thrive. And we are so grateful that we have Jeff with us. I have sent you his bio, and I know that after you read his bio, you and I were truly more excited to really be here this Saturday morning. And I know that many of you will be asking for the recorded webinar and listening to him all over again. And I know I will be doing that. You know, one of the things that we share, that I love to share, is one time in BYU, Hawaii, in one of their walls was painted this mathematical equation of how to achieve self-reliance. And it simply says, income plus savings equals self-reliance. That's a wonderful and simple way to understand what self-reliance is. And right now in this crisis, we're quite having a hard time increasing our income, but we're doing everything we can. But learning from that equation, true self-reliance can only be achieved by combining both. We need to have our income, but we also need to have those savings so that we can truly say and have that peace of mind that we are truly self-reliant. And so we're honored to have Jeff talk about that. And he will also remind us of how we can overcome fear that would truly paralyze each and every one of us on how we can move forward and accomplish many great things. And fear is the enemy of us all. So Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, I please welcome on screen, Jeff Burningham.
Thanks, James. It's so great to be here. And thanks, Lloyd. I'm excited to be with you all on a Saturday morning. I hope it's beautiful there in the Philippines. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person. Maybe next time I'll be able to be there in person. I'd love to do that. I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about, or it's night here, but I guess morning there, about, like James said, about how to create an emergency fund, how to raise capital and secure capital and keep it safe during hard times. But before I do that, and I'd like to take 30 minutes or so and speak to you. I hope that's not too long. I hope it's interesting. And then I'll open it up for questions, and or James, it's up to you, but I'm happy to do questions along the way as well if someone raises their hand. Do you want to alert me?
Yes, yeah, we can do that too.
Great. As we all know, the simple lessons are the most powerful lessons. And you'll remember that in the scriptures, the Savior says in, I think, 3 of our 4 standard works, he talks about small and simple things. And if you don't mind, I assume, James, it's okay for me to talk about the scriptures some here. And yep. In Alma chapter 37, verse 6, we're taught, now you suppose that it is foolishness in me, but behold, I say unto you that by small and simple things are great things brought to pass. And small means in many instances doth confound the wise. We all know those scriptures, or some of those. They talk about a small helm directing a large ship in the Doctrine and Covenants. And in the New Testament, the Savior talks about small and simple things. Really saving for a rainy day or for a challenging time like we're having now during a global pandemic or whatever the case may be, is a small and simple thing. It's not something that you do once, or it's not one big thing. It's little drops in the bucket every day. And I want to talk about how my wife, Sally, and I kind of built a reserve in our family and also in the businesses that we've started, and tell you how we did that, give you some ideas. In fact, a specific idea of how you can build reserves, especially during challenging times. And there might be a couple exercises that I have you do. So James, I don't know if, I guess to our listeners or to the people that are out there, I'd like to talk about creating a personal and professional financial runway. And I want to remind you about fear during this time. This is a scary time. I don't know how it feels in the Philippines, but it's challenging here in the United States. We have a lot of things going on with the global pandemic and the volatility in the stock market because of that. Obviously, challenges and race relations, the senseless violence that we're seeing in America. It's really disheartening and it's really discouraging. So here's the first exercise. I don't know how many people are online, but anyone who is, I'd like you to just take a minute and think about all the fears that you've had in your life. You know, I have 4 young children or 4 children. Well, my oldest is on a mission. He just left on a mission. He's 18 years old. My youngest is 9 years old. But think of all the fears that you've ever had in your life. Everyone take a second and do that. You think of like the monster underneath your bed or in the closet, or whatever other things that you may be scared of as a child and as an adult. Think about those for a minute. And then I want you to think about how many of those fears really came true. Certainly some of our fears do happen. They do come true. It is scary. It is challenging. But a vast majority of our fears never take place. They never take hold. They never happen. And so what I would remind you is that during this challenging time, and as you're starting a business, as you're growing a business, as you're trying to create reserves of capital for yourselves, Fear almost always plays a destructive role. Too often, we let challenges in the past, which we've all had, we've all made mistakes. Every single person on this Zoom call has made mistakes. That's one of the things that we all share in common, is that we all make mistakes. But there are those that are able to overcome those mistakes in the past, move forward in a productive, positive way. And there are those who get stuck in the past and continue to be challenged by those things. So don't let mistakes of the past or fear of an unknown future destroy your peace, destroy your happiness, and keep you in fear. And there's a reason why I'm saying this. It's because, like I said, savings and creating reserves is about a drop in the bucket every day. If you haven't done it in the past, don't worry. The past is the past. There's nothing you can do to change the past. None of us can change what's happened in the past, but we can change the future. We can change what's going to happen going forward. And so let the mistakes go, and don't be bogged down by fear of an unknown future. You know, I was running for governor here in the state of Utah. The governor is the leader, the CEO of the state. And I was running against several politicians. I'm not a politician, I'm an entrepreneur. And I had no idea 6 months ago that there would be a global pandemic that would completely disrupt the campaign that I'd been preparing for the last year. None of us know what's coming. The future is unknowable. So why waste energy being concerned about it or worrying about it? Fear creates wasted energy that hurts us in reaching our goals. And I would encourage you to let go of those fears. I believe that happiness is the normal state of our existence. Whether you live in the Philippines, the United States, Zimbabwe, Brazil, anywhere in the world, happiness is our natural state of being. Obviously, we're children of God. God wants us to be happy. We know that He's happy. And so that's our natural state of being. Anytime that you're getting bogged down by fear, obviously you can not worry about the mistakes in the past, not worry about an unknown future, and move forward. Secondly, so that's the first thing I want to say. Number two, and this is all leading up, because I'm going to share with you how I built a reserve. I'm going to show you my budgets. Let's not compare ourselves to each other. You know, talking about happiness is kind of our natural state of being. One of the greatest things that destroys our happiness, I think, is when we compare ourselves with others. That isn't meant to be the case. Obviously, my life in America is different than your life in the Philippines. There are different parts of the Philippines that are very different than other parts. And it's never useful to compare ourselves to others. And I don't want you to compare yourself to others either in your alumni group or in your classes. I don't want you to compare yourself to me. Really, you should be comparing yourself to yourself, who your best self is, how you can do it, and obviously praying every day to know how you can be your very best self. We need less comparison in the world. Here in Utah, in the United States, I assume it's the same in the Philippines. And we need more compassion for each other. We're all struggling with different things, and we need to have compassion as we go through life. And then that leads to the third thing that I'd like to say. No matter our differences, and there are differences, we're, different religion, different race, different nationalities, different socioeconomic situations. No matter all our differences, different genders, different sexual orientation. I mean, there's a lot of things that could divide us, but really what unites us as brothers and sisters and as children of God is so much greater than anything that could ever divide us. We have more alike than we ever have in common. I would bet, although I don't know you and I'm talking to you through a computer screen, I would bet that your fears, your desires, your hopes and dreams are a lot more similar to mine and mine to yours than we would maybe ever expect or know. So know that we're all in this together. We're all trudging the same paths. We've all made mistakes. We've made personal mistakes. We've also made financial mistakes. And I've had businesses that have failed and have not worked. I've had businesses that have become a big success. But it's not about comparing ourselves to each other. It's about having compassion for each other, lifting each other, helping each other in our entrepreneurship dreams and in life. And remembering that we always have a lot more in common, no matter our differences, than we ever have, than we ever are different. We're united as Latter-day Saints in covenant. The covenants that you have made, James and Lloyd and the rest of the group, are the same covenants that I've made here in Provo, Utah. And we're united by that. All around the world, the covenants, the promises that we've made are the same. And then we're united by principle, gospel principle, and other principles like financial principles that I'd like to talk to you about tonight. So remember that we're united in those ways. Okay, let's talk about reserves and finances. I've asked Sally, my wife, to kind of join me here for this little part. This is my wife, Sally.
Hi.
Say hi. Yeah. I want to talk first about how we built a personal family reserve, because I know a lot of you are running small businesses, and really, I know it's important to keep separate records. And that's one of the principles in the academy that you learn. You have kind of personal finances, you have business finances, but in a small business, those business finances usually flow right into your personal finances. Sally and I got married in the Salt Lake Temple in 1999. So 21 years ago this August. And here's what we started keeping from the first month of our marriage. Look, our book of finances. This is it. This is what we did from the beginning. And this is what you need to have and do too. It's very simple. Again, remember what I said at the beginning, the most powerful lessons are the most simple lessons oftentimes, and they pay the greatest dividends. Here is our first budget in October of 1999. It was handwritten. Again, this is 21 years ago. Sally and I kept this budget. We wrote down every expense that we had for the first 15 years of our marriage. You'll see that we broke the categories down into 6 different categories. We had bills that would include like telephone bills or cell phone bills, rent, mortgage, utilities, whatever. We had cars because we each owned a old ugly car. And obviously with cars comes expense, gas and insurance and maintenance. So we had bills, cars, food. Everyone's got to eat. Whether you're in the Philippines or in Utah, you need to eat. We had entertainment. So this was kind of our free, what we did for fun. Just so you know, we spent in the first month of our marriage, we spent $23 on entertainment. We spent $572 on bills, $94 on cars. And then we had just an other category, which is kind of a catch-all for right here. We have in here garments, ESPN magazine, haircuts. I had hair back then. I used to have as good a hair as James, but I lost it. We had gifts to other people. So that was kind of our catch-all other category. And then we totaled that up at the bottom. And we lived in the United States on our first year of marriage. And I don't know how this compares to the Philippines. And that's what I said, that we don't want to compare, but on $937.02. So less than $1,000. That was the first month of our marriage. This book, here's our November budget. And we modified it a little bit. We had anticipated spending of $900, bills of $550, food of $150, car of $100, and then miscellaneous of $100. And we kept, like I said, every single expense that we had for the first 15 years of our marriage, we wrote down. And we compared, we added them up at the end of every month. And we compared what we spent to what our goal was, what our budget was. This is a key in being able to create reserves. Because like I said, reserves don't happen in an instance. They don't happen in one big boom. They happen slowly and surely, month after month. Sally, would you like to, what do you remember about this budget, or what might you like to say?
Yeah, we kept every receipt. I went through the receipts and wrote everything down. If I didn't have time to write it down, I stuck it in the book and wrote it down later. And we were very, very meticulous about writing everything down, because what good is a budget if there's things that you didn't write down on it that you spent? So it's really important to be consistent and accurate in your bookkeeping.
Yeah, and so in 1999, you know, our budget was $900. In January of 2001, it looks like it had grown to, this book is old, so it's hard to show you because it's falling apart. But it looks like it had grown to $2,000. That was our budget and our goal. We kept everything in here, every expense that we made, until August 2013. So 14 years. Look, Sally put last budget, exclamation point, exclamation point. We didn't have to, you know, so I guess for 7 years now, we don't really have to keep a budget now, but we were meticulous in keeping a budget the first 15 years of our marriage. That's critical for you to do in your family life and in your business. Keep a budget, understand what you're spending, set a goal for what you're in, an anticipated spend in different categories, and then write those expenses down. I know that can be tedious, it can be hard, it's not fun, but those are the little things that you do daily to make sure that you create runway or reserves in your personal life and in your business. I call it runway. Does that make sense? The longer your runway is, the more time you have to take off financially as a company, as a small business, as a family. You have opportunities to do that. Are you leaving me?
Well, I can say.
Isn't it better with Sally here? Come on. It's just better, isn't it? Yes. So please keep a budget, personally and in your business. We know as Latter-day Saints that the most important thing to do, let's say that you made $100 in a month. I'm making this up. We pay tithing. So $10 goes to tithing. I assume that either all or most of the people that I'm speaking with tonight pay tithing, and I would encourage you to do that. It's a commandment from God. It's something that's important. It keeps us humble. It keeps us hungry. It keeps the right perspective. We know where our temporal and all our blessings come from. And so after you pay tithing, though, here's the simple principle I'd like to teach tonight. And I want to make sure that everyone gets this. Pay yourself. Pay yourself first. So I'm going to say that tithing just happens. We all tithe. If we make $100, we pay $10 in tithing. So I'm going to say that that's a given. After that, always pay yourself first. So in a simple example, if you make $100 in June 2020, 10 will go to tithing. And this is how Sally and I started. And 10 would go to savings. That's what I mean by paying yourself first. $100, 10 goes to tithing, 10 goes to, I call it paying yourself. The reason I say that is because it's like a positive spin on it. You know what I mean? It's not something that you dread or it's not a drudgery. You're paying yourself so that you can do what you want to do in the future. So right away, I would take the $100, I would pay 10 to tithing, and I would put 10 away. So that means you have 80 to then live on, right? So you have $80 to then live on. And you can do this in your business too. Let's say you make $1,000 a month in your business. I would immediately put 10% aside paying yourself, and just make it a habit. Do it because you need to start this month, June 2020, in doing that if you haven't done that right now. Because what happens is over years and decades, that builds something very, very meaningful. And it's those little drops in the bucket, and it's the discipline to pay yourself first that will pay huge dividends down the line. The goal of this is so let me tell you, or maybe Sal, if you're comfortable, our children get a little bit of allowance. What do they get? $1 for how old they are?
They get 50 cents for how old they are.
So 50 cents for their age. So I'm trying to, we have a 10-year-old. He's actually 9, but I'm going to say he's 10. So he gets $5 a week as allowance because he does jobs around the house and helps us. How does he break up that money? Or do you want me to say that? Yeah.
Yeah, so he pays 10% to tithing first, and then he saves 10%. So we have a way for them to save money away for missions and college and that kind of thing. And then he gets to spend the rest on whatever he wants. Or he can also has the choice, obviously, to put more into savings if he wants to.
Because it's not 10%, is it? It's 40%.
Oh yeah, sorry, it is. It's 40%.
I just said 10%.
Yeah.
So start with 10%, but our kids, so they get $5 in this example for allowance. 50 cents goes to the church. $2 we make him save. So half of his money he only gets $2.50 to spend on candy or balls, whatever he wants to buy. So my point in saying that is I would encourage you to pay yourself 10% first and to try to increase that. The goal is to eventually get to where you can pay yourself half of what you make and live on the other half. And then eventually in 2013, for Sally and I, we had some success in business and grew a couple large businesses. Sally's been home with our 4 kids, but I have 2 partners. We grew real estate and technology companies. We were able to, in 2013, give 10% to tithing, live on 10%, and save 80% of what we make. But it took us 15 years to grow into that. So that is the simple principle that I'd like to talk about and teach about tonight, is paying yourself first. You pay your tithing, pay yourself first. Start with 10% right now, this week, this day, this month, and try to grow that over time. Make it so that you're paying yourself 20% and then 30, and then as much as you possibly can. Ultimately, the goal is to become, hopefully like Sally and I did, where we can now live on like 10% of our income, and we're saving 80% of our income for a rainy day like we're in, or for other businesses that we want to start. Most businesses take a while to create and generate revenue for its founders, as you guys know. And so you need that runway to do that. Does that make sense, James?
Yes, sir.
So go ahead. Let me share one last thought, and then I'm going to throw it over to you guys for questions. Is that okay? That is a great personal model to use to create savings, even in times of crisis. And I would have the discipline to just do that. I would assume that most of you on this call have the discipline and the habit of paying your tithing. 10% just goes to the Lord, goes to the church. Do that for yourself. Get in the discipline of just 10% goes to your savings. You pay yourself first. That's not money you can touch. So you only live on 80% of what you earn. I'm not going to obviously talk about taxes tonight, but you get what I'm talking about. Now, and a lot of times, like I said, you keep your separate books in your business, but if there's a profit of $1,000, $1,000 comes to you, 100 goes to tithing, 100 to yourself, and then you live on $800, for example. Now, let me talk about a little bit in your business. In your personal life and in your business, you need to create what I would call an emergency fund. This is for dark days. This is for, this is for natural events that you guys have a lot in the Philippines, earthquakes and natural disasters. It's for COVID-19 and global pandemics. It's for the rainy day that you can't foresee. You need to try to reserve at least 6 months of runway in your personal family life, in your home life, and in your business. That should be your first goal, is to get 6 months of savings in your business so that your business could operate or run for as many months as possible if there's a change in revenue. So that's step one. Step two in your business, obviously, if you have excess cash flow, is to then invest your cash wisely. This is something I'm happy to talk about in the Q&A if you'd like to. But if you have excess capital, it's not, whereas in a family, it might be smart to just keep building your savings up and then investing it wisely. In a business, you may have shareholders, you may have other people in your business that the profits or the income needs to be distributed. When it's distributed, make sure that the money you reserve, or after you have your emergency fund, make sure that you're making smart investments. That could be, and I don't know the Philippines market, so I don't want to speak to it, but it could be buying a share of stock. It could be investing in another entrepreneur. It could be buying a piece of real estate or investing in a piece of real estate. Try to diversify your investments in your business so that when one market or one industry goes down, you're diversified and can weather the storm. That is the next step after you have an emergency fund. You can only start investing, though, in other companies or in other things, instruments, after you have an emergency fund, personally and in your business. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to you. A reminder that fear almost always plays a destructive role. I believe in you. We believe in you. We know that you're a good entrepreneur. There are good entrepreneurs all over the globe. There is no country, there is no people that have a better understanding of entrepreneurship. We all have opportunities to be entrepreneurs. So don't be afraid. Remember that comparison is often a thief to our happiness. And it's not about comparing ourselves to others. If your friend or neighbor or someone in your ward has savings and you don't, that's okay. You can start saving today. It's not about comparing yourself to someone else. And then remember that we're all alike. And even though we're here in Provo, Utah, it's Friday night, 7:30 p.m., we have a lot more alike than we have difference. I bet that James and his wife have a lot of the same goals and aspirations and dreams that Sally and I have, even though we live in different places. So we're all a lot more alike, even despite our differences. Remember to pay yourself first. You pay your tithing, that's just a given, and then pay yourself first. Save as much money as you possibly can. Start with 10% every month. Just be disciplined, just like tithing. Put it away, and then try to increase that. Try to get it up to 50%. Try to get it as high as you possibly can. If you do that consistently and on a monthly basis, you'll have the reserves that you need in times of crisis. It's a very simple principle, but it's a powerful principle. I'm confident that this ugly book of finances that Sally and I created the month after we got married really set us on a good financial trajectory in our family and in our businesses. And it was because we were meticulous in our budgeting in keeping good records and in looking for ways that we can invest our money wisely. So it's been great to be with you tonight. I'm available for the next hour to answer questions or talk or do whatever you'd like to do. My son's in a basketball tournament. I have a 16-year-old son who has a game at 9 o'clock tonight, about a half an hour away from here. So, but I'm free for the next hour to try to help or answer any questions as you see fit. Thanks.
Wow. Thank you so much, Jeff and Sally, for those wonderful words. You know, you have proven one of my favorite quotes from Leonardo da Vinci, that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Those are simple and truly powerful principles that you have taught us today. In fact, I'm just amazed because we are not in a very simple situation right now, but you have proven the fact that it's through the small and simple things that we can survive. We don't have to complicate things because things are already complicated in itself. We have a few questions right now, and my wife would first like to ask Sister Sally, if that's okay.
Yeah, but first of all, thank you for sharing that wonderful first 15-year plan that you had.
Oh, amazing.
It's amazing. It reminded me of how my husband and I started. We call it the envelope method, where we put everything in an envelope, no matter how small it is. Thank you so much for that, for sharing that wonderful experience of yours. Now, as you move along with life, you know, it's so easy to fall out of the simple plan that you know, everyone started with when they have began. So my question to Sister Sally is, how do you now say no to kids' whims? You know, when you have kids, the game plan changes. So how do you say no to their whims, to their unnecessary requests?
And maybe to add to that, a lot of Filipinos feel that, you know, we don't want our kids to go through the same difficulties that we went through. And so it's so easy for a lot of Filipinos to, you know, to give in when somebody asks, we want a new cell phone, my classmate has this and that. And sometimes that really throws off the budget and everything. What are some of your strategies for that one?
Well, one thing that I kind of wanted to say with this budget is that once you do it for so long, diligently and really, really, you know, consistently and I don't know what the word is, but you get in the habit of not spending, you know, of kind of saying no to certain things, right? So you're in that habit, you're in that mindset. So even when you have excess or money that you could spend on other things, you're kind of in this mindset of no, you know, we have this amount we're sticking to, even though now we don't really have an amount we're sticking to. But I'm in that mindset of no, we don't need to spend money on this. And so, in fact, that's what I say to the kids when they say, oh, Mom, like we have a 13-year-old daughter, and she'll say, Mom, I love this shirt. Don't you just love this shirt? It's so cute. I really want this shirt. And I'll say, oh yeah, that's a great shirt. Do you need another shirt? You know, and I use that word, need. Is this something you need? If it is, I'm happy to buy it for you if you need it. If it's something that you want, you have money, you can buy it yourself. If that's something that you really, really want. And the interesting thing is, when it's their own money, they suddenly don't want it quite as much as when, you know, they're asking me to buy it for them.
Yeah, I think it's important that you have kids pitch in. Like, they have to contribute to whatever they buy. They have a certain amount that they need to save or to buy into it. You know, James, I'd ask you guys and I'd ask our listeners, all of us struggle, all of us are going through life, and it's hard, it's not easy. But as you know, and we know the phrase, the joy is in the journey, really. And so remember that when we short circuit that journey for our children, we're not doing them any favors. You guys are happy and you have character because of the trials that you've gone through, because of the things that you've done. And so you don't ever want to short circuit that in your own children. No, nothing is worth that. There's no physical product that could be worth short circuiting or not allowing the journey to happen, not allowing our kids to struggle and to learn the lessons that we have learned. So when our kids are asking us for things, and we know, that's what I think of, is I think they need to have their own experience. They need to have their own journey. They need to build their own character, just like you have and just like we have through these hard times and challenges.
Oh, those are
That
wonderful.
was perfect.
Do you give them extra work if they want, say, to buy extra stuff in addition to the work that they have in the chores in the home
They're allowed.
from their allowance?
Yeah, there are some there are some things that we allow them to do that where they can earn extra money from time to time, and or we help them find a job. I remember our 18-year-old son who just left on a mission. We built a house. We're in the house now a couple of years ago, and he started saying that he wanted to earn some money. And so I asked the guy who was putting in our landscaping, can my son work for you? And he just became a normal worker on the crew, hauling dirt and digging ditches and planting trees to earn extra money. So we look for opportunities for our children to learn. And we also help our children be entrepreneurs. We have a 16-year-old son right now who loves to paint shoes. He's very artistic, and he'll buy white shoes, Nike Air Force Ones or Vans, and then he'll custom paint them in really cool ways. And so he's had to earn money for the paint and for the spray brush. And he's done that on his own. So we try to encourage entrepreneurship in our children as well in little ways.
Wow, thank you. Before I ask the next question, we would like to remind our viewers and our listeners to go ahead and type in your question in the Q&A box, and we would be honored to read them to both Jeff and Sally. Here's another question for both of you. How do you handle is that unnecessary? Necessary debt, like student loans, housing loans, car loans. How do you factor those in your budget system?
Yeah, first of all, we know from President Hinckley and other prophets that we should try not to go into debt except for a home or maybe education, number one. When we do decide that it's worth it for education or for a home, obviously we should be wise in the money that we're lent. We should make sure that it fits within our budget, that we have a mortgage or a rental payment that we can afford monthly. And then we should try to pay that off as we can. That's why you create savings. I think after you have a 6-month emergency fund in your home and or in your business, that's a good time to evaluate if you should pay down debt. You can start making extra payments. You can start accelerating payments. You can look for ways to refinance and lower your leverage, lower your debt to income ratio. After you have a 6-month emergency fund, I think that's a good way to do that. But yeah, that's how we have only gone into debt for actually just homes, maybe a little bit education when we were younger, but we paid those off as quickly as we could. And we don't have any debt now because we were steadfast in using our savings to pay down our debt as quickly as we possibly could.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
No, I don't have any other thought.
Yeah. Here's a great question. And I think a lot of Filipinos would really benefit from this one. We have here in the Philippines, we always think when you are an American, you always start out wealthy. And so the question here is, in your case, according to this viewer, your case is so ideal. What if a couple did not start the same way like you? How do you save reserves with existing debt, especially now? How do you build up your capital and everything? So I think they would appreciate, Jeff, And I do have a little bit of background about you and Sally, but can you help them understand where you started? Because some people think that it's easy because you already have all of this, a lot of money, and that's why all the process seems to be very easy.
Yeah, that's kind of the case for our kids. What we tell our children is when they feel like they have a lot of money, or someone says, "You guys have money," we say, "You don't have money. Maybe mom and dad have money. You have nothing." And it's because I started with nothing. As you know, James, I started very young, and I started my first business as a 13-year-old. There was a knock on our door. Our doorbell just rang. So Sally just went to look, kind of like this. And I overheard my mom having a conversation with a carpet cleaning salesman. And my mom said, "No, thanks. We're not interested in the carpet cleaner," and sent them away. And I quickly grabbed, or when she left, I said, "Mom, no, buy that carpet cleaner. I'll pay you back, and I'll start cleaning carpets, and I'll pay you back." I was a competitive basketball player. Actually, I love basketball. And so but I'm the oldest of 6 kids. So my parents couldn't afford shoes. They couldn't afford for me to go to the camps that I needed to. I couldn't go to all the travel tournaments that an elite basketball player is supposed to do. And so the only way I could do that was to become resourceful and to make money myself. And so that carpet cleaner wasn't very expensive. It was a couple $100s. I paid back that debt, James, going back to what we just spoke about. And I went around to my little brother's elementary school, to their preschool. I went to my dentist, my doctor, and asked them all if I could clean their carpets. And I started cleaning their carpets to earn money so that I could pay for the thing that I loved, which was competitive basketball. So that's how I started. I started from scratch. Secondly, real quick, and I don't know how it is in the Philippines, but I was a valedictorian in high school, meaning I got all straight A's. I was a student body president. I played basketball and football. Anyways, the point of that is to say, I worked really hard to get scholarships to school. So I actually got paid to go to school, but it was because of my own hard work and industriousness the 5 years before I went to college. And then I spent a lot of time applying for scholarships before I went. And so for me, I actually had my school paid for and had a little bit extra because of my hard work and industriousness. And then lastly, I'll just say, Sally was a second grade school teacher. So I got married and Sally taught second grade the summer, my senior year at BYU. She was teaching. Teachers aren't paid very well in Utah. You may know that, but we had enough that we could live. We had $900 a month, like we showed you in our budget, that we could live on. So it was a time for me where I could try to be an entrepreneur. And if I failed, it wasn't the end of the world because Sally had a job. But Sally got pregnant with our first son shortly thereafter, and I needed to make my business work. So I understand that our situation, at least financially right now, is ideal. You're right. But that's not where we came from, and that's not what we started with. And that kind of goes to the question about what we give our children as well. The joy was in the struggle for us. It was in the journey. It's nice to live in a nice house now and blah, blah, blah. But really, the joy was in the journey and in the struggle of building businesses and budgeting together and being smart. And we don't ever want to take that away from our kids. Just because we could give them money to do that, we will never do that. So, everyone's situation is different. Sally and I didn't come from anything. Our children are now a different story. But, every situation has its challenges. No doubt about it.
That's
Wow.
beautiful.
Yes, thank you so much. And I know that a lot of our Filipino listeners are really benefiting from this because you said it so perfectly. we started from zero, and that's what everybody needs to hear, because it's so difficult to imagine all of these principles when you're thinking that, you know, they already have it in the beginning. And so thank you for clarifying that. And I think you truly exemplified one of the best statements I've ever read. You know, it's not lack of resources, but lack of resourcefulness. And that's what you have. You were very resourceful. You did not have everything when you started, but it was through your resourcefulness that you were able to build it up.
Yeah, one of the things that I've learned as an entrepreneur is that the best entrepreneurs have a bias towards action. They make things happen. They don't just sit and talk about it and dream. No, they go and do it. That's just like me saying, Mom, please buy that carpet cleaner for me. You know, I'll pay you back. They make things happen. They don't hesitate. They make moves. Now, you'll make mistakes sometimes when you do that, but that's okay, because your resourcefulness will pay off in the end. Your resourcefulness will see your way through, will help your way through. And, you know, the outcome will be you'll have more resources in the end because of your resourcefulness. I love that, James. That was great. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. Wonderful. We have another great question here, and I think Sally can give us a little clarification on this one. They go, and you mentioned this earlier. It's so difficult to have that discipline, budgeting every month, taking down notes and everything. So the question is, how do you build that consistency, that discipline of making those lists, those budgets and everything? So, and you mentioned a while ago, eventually it becomes a habit. But when you're not yet there, how do you build that consistency and that discipline along the way?
That's a great question. Gosh, I don't know. I think I'm a person of habit of planning already, just naturally, and so that was very easy for me to. I'm good at give me a job and I will do it how you told me to do it. You know, that's kind of how I am. So for me, that was not hard. I can see how if you're not naturally that way, it would be very difficult. You know, you'd have to be very disciplined in writing everything down. Obviously, it's easier. This is why you try to start when you're just starting out, because you don't have that much to write down. You know, you just don't have that much because you don't have much money. So, and you don't have as many expenses. You don't have kids. You don't have, you know, as many things. But I think just slow and patient with yourself. And the main thing is if you save receipts. Now, obviously now with online things, that's a little bit harder, you know, because.
Or it could be easier because you could just take your credit card or your debit card statement and you could just almost make that your budget. You know, you could overlay that onto your budget.
Yeah, you could. And also maybe create like an email folder that's receipts, you know, maybe even for every month or something, so that you can just, you know, if you have an online purchase and they usually send you a receipt, then you can just transfer it to that month. And then maybe later at the end of every month, say you set a date, okay, on the very last day of the month or a week before or the 15th or whatever, choose a day and you write down everything, transfer it to your budget. You know, if you choose a specific day to do that, maybe that's a better system for you. Instead of writing everything as it comes, just file it away in a way that works for you, and then choose a day that you write it all down or transfer it all to your budget.
Yeah, none of us can create more time. We all have the same amount of time. That's another way that we're similar, is that every day has 24 hours, whether you're in the Philippines or in Utah. And so we get to choose how we prioritize that time. Now, certainly budgeting and finances isn't the number one priority in our lives, probably the gospel and other in our family, but it's pretty high up there because it leads to us it helps us to be faithful. It helps us to have time to serve. And so It's what you prioritize. It's what you do. We wanted to make sure that we were on top of our finances. And again, this started 21 years ago. There's a lot better ways to do it now, and we haven't looked into that recently, but the best way for us was to write every single receipt down. I mean, some of these months, look, I mean, they have, I don't know, 100 transactions written down. That took time, but we made it a priority. Obviously, whatever you think is important, you prioritize. And if you want to get on top of your family finances, if you want to get on top of your business finances, you've got to devote time for it. And there's nothing that will inform your decisions better than having good data. But if you don't have the data, if you don't know where your money's going, how much to what, it is hard to make decisions. So if you're just spending without the data, you don't know where money's going. It's hard to make good decisions. You got to have the data to make good decisions.
Oh, perfect. I have a follow-up question. I know what you have done is truly ideal, but with the wisdom that you have now because of the growth and development, looking back to what you have done, is there anything you would have done differently? It was already ideal, but with the wisdom that you have gained over the years, is there anything you would have done differently when you started out and doing all of these things, the budget and everything?
Yeah, I can think of one thing, and then I'm sure Sally can probably, but my thing, I wouldn't have, and this is, everyone's in different situations. Like we said, I wouldn't have taken it so seriously. We were very serious about it. As you can see, I don't know, maybe too much, but I don't think we'd say too much now just because it's helped us get to where we were, but I was too serious about it. Like, I used to ask Sally when we were first married. I used to ask Sally, I'd come home from work and say, how was your day? What did you do? How's life? And I'd say, what did you spend? How much what did you spend it on? And that's not always good for a marriage. You guys are laughing. And so there needs to be a balance. It shouldn't create contention. And so anyways, that's what I personally would have done a little differently. Now, that's really easy to say, and it's easy for me to say now. Now I don't even have to have a budget, so that's easy to say now. But I think I would have been a little less militant, especially with Sally in terms of what was spent early on. But again, we started with nothing, James. We had to watch every penny. That's not the case now, but that's not where we started from. And so anyways.
Yeah, I think it takes a lot of trust in each other, as your money's a big deal. And like Jeff said, it can cause a lot of contention. And I think there needs to be trust with each other on what you did spend and why you did, and not have, just trust that your spouse has the same goal that you do. Because obviously, if you're setting a budget, you've talked about what your goal is. So just trust they won't do anything that's going to compromise that goal. And I think that's helpful.
Yeah, and that's another way that a budget's helpful in a marriage. Let's say that we allocated $100 a month for food and groceries. If Sally spent, $100, but it was on that, she stayed within budget. Let's say that we had a budget, I'm making this up, of $50 a month for clothing. If that's what we agreed on, if Sally spent that money at, the Gap versus H&M, or on shoes versus a jacket, that's her choice. That's within our budget. That's her choice. We decided that the budget was 50, as long as she was, below 50 or really close to that. It's really none of my business, and it doesn't, we met our goal in terms of budgeting,
Wow, this is perfect that Filipinos are hearing this,
And I think
I thought all Filipino marriages was like just bliss and love and pure happiness. Is that not the case? Divorce doesn't exist in the Philippines, does it?
No.
we like what you said, that the happiness is in the journey.
Right.
And I think that's
right.
really important for everybody to understand. It's not just in the reaching of the goal, but as you go through it as husband and wife, that's where you find real happiness.
Right.
And I really agree to that.
Yeah. Those are
Yeah,
good.
and I think that's true in building a business as well. To all the struggling entrepreneurs out there, don't ever forget that. One day, I hope, and God willing, and we're praying for you, you'll be a huge success. And you'll look back and you'll say, those days where I really struggled, we didn't know if we'd make it. You'll remember the crazy stories where you pulled it out and made it happen. Those will actually be the nearest and dearest to your heart, not your success. So remember that in your entrepreneur. I think that's true in love and marriage, and it's true in entrepreneurship as well.
Perfect.
That's true.
Perfect. Oh, that's beautiful.
That's sweet.
That's sweet.
How can you not kiss this face?
I know. Yeah, it's true.
That's really lovely.
Here's a great question from one of our listeners. They go, you started young. What would be your advice for someone who's starting like at the age of 45 already?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I have a couple pieces of advice. Start today. This is why I spoke about fear at the beginning. Again, we let mistakes of the past hold us back. It doesn't matter if you're 45. I'm 43. Sally's 42. It doesn't matter if you haven't saved a penny up until today. You can save a penny tomorrow, and you can start going. So start now. That would be my advice. And don't worry, don't beat yourself up about the past. The past is the past and you can't change it. What you can change is how you behave and act today, what you do today and what you do tomorrow. So get on with it. Start saving now. Like I said, I really think that simple habit, and again, the way I like to phrase it, you pay God or you pay your tithing and then you pay yourself. You just pay it. It's as sacred almost as tithing. Right after tithing, the second most sacred money is the money that you save for your family. Just do it. If that means you have to live on 10% less a month, do it. Start it this month. Start paying yourself and watching your runway and your savings increase, your peace of mind increase. And that money becomes a compounding power in your financial life and in your business if you'll do that. So my advice is to start now. That's the great thing about life. Every morning we wake up and we can do it differently. We can try to do it better.
thank you so much. Yeah, a lot of these things that we're talking about should have started yesterday, but
yeah. And that's the other powerful thing about money that's really cool and interesting, and it's something now that I've lived a little bit. At first, when Sally and I were putting away, $100 a month, and that's not a lot of money in the United States to monthly put away, but that $100 has now built up, and it grew, but it built up over 21 years, and it starts to become a lot of money, especially if you invest it wisely. Money grows. If you water money, if you invest it wisely, money grows. And we've been fortunate and blessed in making good investments that have allowed our meager savings at first to grow into something quite substantial now. But it started with a little grain of a mustard seed of savings, and it grew from there.
You mentioned about savings. I think this is a good question to ask now. We are in a really tough times. This is we are in a pandemic. Do you think it's a great time to invest, and what would be those things that we can invest on in a time like this?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's so specific. I'm not an investment advisor. I don't give an investment advice per se, but the way to be very successful is to be a contrarian. When everyone's running this way, you run that way. Meaning, when everyone's running from real estate, you run into real estate. Now, this can be risky and dangerous, but if you're smart, like in 2009 during the Great Recession, I started a real estate investment firm. Everyone was fleeing real estate. I went into real estate. And so I don't know what I don't know the economy in the Philippines. I don't know what's going on in the Philippines, but I would look for opportunities where others are fleeing, certain aspects, but you still see opportunity there. You believe that it will come back. I would look for hidden gems like that. That might be in small local businesses. That might be in real estate. It might be in stocks that are underappreciated in your opinion, but that will, technology stocks or whatever, that will grow. So I always try to look for that. The second thing is you always try to invest with what I would call a margin of safety. So the price you buy things at really matters. And if there's a pricing correction happening now, that can be good for investors. The house, and James, sorry, I haven't been to your home or your apartment, but that you're living in now might be worth a little less than it was a couple months ago. That's a better time to buy now than it was even a couple months ago, if you believe in the market and that it will come back. So always try to buy with a margin of safety, so that you can absorb some downturn in the value of an investment. I don't know if that's helpful. It's so specific to your area and region, and I'm reticent to I don't want to give anyone bad advice because I don't know their specific situation, but look for underappreciated assets. Whenever people are fearful of something, my interest peaks. And I say, why is in the United States in 2009, are people still want roofs over their head? Yes. Is real estate going to come back? Yes. Why is everyone running? Oh, because of the financial meltdown. But real estate will come back. If we can just figure out how to finance these buildings, we can buy them really low and sell them much higher value, in 5 or 10 years. And that's what we've done many times over. So the point is, when I see people that are, afraid of things, I really look into it hard and see if there's an opportunity that others are missing. The herd mentality is not a good way to invest. You don't invest in a herd with everyone, what everyone else is doing. Again, in an emergency fund, you do. You have to have a base of savings, but after that, you look for opportunities that not everyone else is bullish on or looking into or going into, because that interest causes prices to rise, and you want to buy with a good margin of safety and make good investments on the buy side.
Thank you for that one. Here's another question from one of our viewers. How do you manage impulses? That great desire to buy something, especially if you really, really want it, it's eating you up. It's not in the budget and everything. But sometimes, and Sally mentioned this a while ago, there's wisdom in understanding between wants and needs. But sometimes our brain tricks us, so we need it. So how do you, especially when you're already too emotional about it, so how do you keep that balance and keep that sanity, that and remind yourself in the right way?
Yeah, let me share a couple quick thoughts, and then Sally will probably have a thought. But number one, don't make emotional purchases. Money isn't bad or good. Money's neutral. It's paper. What you do with the money can be bad or good. And so don't make emotional decisions with money. Money's not emotional. It's just paper. And so you should have an agreement, I think, between you and your significant other about a dollar amount. If anything costs over, $10, we talk about it before we buy it, or whatever the right number is. Anything under $10, as long as it's within the budget, you just buy it. But if it's a bigger purchase, you should have a sounding board, someone that you talk to about it. I would never make a big purchase without consulting Sally and without probably sleeping on it, you know, for a night at least, and thinking about it and making sure it's something I really want to do. So there's some thoughts and ideas.
And I would say it's not bad to buy something that you want. But obviously, like Jeff said, if it's a huge purchase, might not be the best idea for you. So maybe, I think a lot of times money and food are tied to emotional things we're missing. So I do think it's important to be able to buy things you want, even if it's something small. Like, I love candy and treats like that. I love it. And when we were first married, I didn't buy candy and treats because that was excessive and, you know, something we didn't need.
And I don't care as much about candy. Although now Sally's now won me over.
Yeah. But occasionally, you know, every once in a while, you know, I buy a 50-cent candy bar, or, you know, and that kind of helps me with that want of, I want this, but I can't have it, you know, kind of a thing. Just if it's something small that you're not going to kill your budget over, I think every once in a while it's okay to, you know, to buy something that you want, because it does fulfill a little bit of a need, but also to be careful not to be using that all the time to fulfill a need that really isn't satisfied with things.
Oh, that's wise. Thank you for those excellent words of wisdom. Cynthia has a question. Go ahead.
And maybe just a follow-up to that. Can you tell us what were your greatest setbacks or your challenges when you were building your reserves? And how did you overcome them?
Yeah. I think that our greatest setbacks, it's just never easy to be an entrepreneur, you know? The ups and downs of entrepreneurship. Your business really, you're not in total control of what happens in the macro market. So I started a technology company in 2000, right before the dot-com bubble burst. I started a real estate company in the Great Recession here in the United States. And so the hardest thing is just staying even keeled with the ups and the downs in markets and in life and in business as an entrepreneur. I think that was the hardest setback for me. Like, I wanted to grow quicker or faster, and we wouldn't do that. So that was frustrating to me. And then the other personal thing, I think, is what I already said, just not making it personal between Sally and I. Again, money's not the most important thing. And sometimes I think that I was too disciplined almost in our budget or whatever, like the treat thing. And like, hey, I'll tell you another story, because we're just telling it all tonight. We'll say anything. So just guess what? Do they give gifts when you get married in the Philippines? I assume you get gifts. Sally, what did I do with most of our gifts?
He took them back.
I took them back to the stores
money.
To get money. What percentage would you say? At least half? More?
Oh yeah, probably 60 or 70% of our gifts he took back.
To try to get money, because we didn't need an extra, I don't know what, but like.
We didn't need, you know, I don't know. We
China.
didn't need China. People give nice, you know, plates and silverware in the United States, and he said,
I took all those back. So do you think was Sally happy about that?
We were about to ask that. How did she feel about that?
No, I wanted China. but Jeff redeemed himself about how many years ago? 5? About 5 years ago, for my birthday, or I can't remember what special occasion, he bought me China, my own set of China. So he gets an A+.
Hey, and this is how much though it meant. I think Sally cried when I gave her that gift.
I did cry.
And so anyways, I just took things too extreme sometimes. So that was my personal mistake, including like taking half or more of our wedding gifts back for credit at Walmart so that we could buy groceries or whatever.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. That I know that that's really special.
That's
And
lovely because
yeah,
it's
it
like
is.
we're talking with a mirror, except Jeff is me and Sally's James.
James loves China.
He loves all things fancy.
Yeah. James loves the finer things in life. I can tell. Just look at his hair. I mean, obvious.
This is my COVID look. No hair. Started, you know. Well, we would like to know from you before we give you the time for your final words of inspiration and wisdom. But how do you see this panning out? At least from you in your country and but generally, how do you see this the economy and everything that's going through right now with your observation and what you've been through in the past?
Yeah, markets cycle. Markets are meant to cycle. What you don't want, you want markets that go like this. Sorry, not like this. So you want markets that go like this more, kind of up with some, but up with some little waves, not like this, where it's up and down and up and down. And I know this is hard in countries maybe like the Philippines, but in other countries. The great thing about the United States is, generally speaking, it's very stable. It's more like this, less like this. But markets are meant to cycle. Healthy markets cycle. When things become too expensive, there needs to be a correction in pricing. That's how markets stay healthy. That's how they stay in balance with supply and demand, is that they cycle back. So I think this is a abnormal pullback, but it's because of the health, the global pandemic, but it's just a pullback in markets. I remain very bullish on the United States. I remain very bullish in the world, mostly speaking, because I think the world's getting better and better. And I think that we continue to have more and more opportunities. I think that there's going to continue to be economic growth that we haven't seen before. So I have no idea how long this will last. No one does. I have no idea what the outcomes will be or how it will change the world. No one does. Here's something I do know. I do know that there is opportunity in disruption. In our world, many of our businesses our lives are being very disrupted right now. So I would look for opportunities to take advantage, not in a bad way, but in a good way, of that disruption and create value for customers in new ways that you haven't been able to do before. So I think that this cycle in the market creates opportunities, actually. If I was an entrepreneur that was still really looking for opportunities or hungry to make my mark or still needed to provide for my family in that way, I would be looking for opportunities in the disruption that's occurring now. Again, in new and innovative ways to serve customers, in new ways that people will consume things or live differently. And so, again, I think the United States will come back. I think that Utah will continue to be really strong. I don't know if that will be in a month or a year. I don't know when. Again, I own a lot of real estate, and I own real estate and I own residential real estate, apartment buildings, because I believe that people value a roof over their head. And so whether the market's good or whether it's hard, people want to live in a safe, affordable, clean place. And so that's what we've invested a lot of our money in too. So I'd look for investments like that that can bear up and down markets.
Thank you. Well, I was telling Cynthia about your wall when we had our test webinar, and we hope to see that the Philippine part of the Philippines map that we have.
There's a map, of these are places that we've traveled to. We've never been to the Philippines, so we're gonna fix that. You're gonna help us fix that. But we've been all over the world. Those are pictures of our families in all different places, and then pins of places we've been. But anyways, we're in my office, or my home office in here right now.
And that's what I was mentioning to James. You know, there were a lot of beautiful things that were discussed today, like not fearing things, or, you know, things that build up in your head, finding happiness in your journey, being patient and not fearing to start from zero. And we hope that all of those things that have been discussed would be put together by our viewers. And hopefully it will be, the one on your background is will be reflective of the results of how we will apply all of these lessons. You know, we can also go to places
Yeah.
and then, you know, live a beautiful and productive life with our family.
We would like to give you now the time for your final words, Jeff and Sally. And we have been blessed by your wisdom, by your example, and simply by your presence. This is truly an amazing morning for us here in the Philippines. And I know that many lives have been changed and have been touched today. Thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. So we would like to give you now the time for your final words of inspiration. And then Lloyd, I would ask Lloyd to give us the closing prayer. So please, Jeff and Sally.
Okay, I wasn't expecting closing words, but thank you for letting me be part of this. I know it wasn't the plan. Jeff likes to throw things in there sometimes, so he asked me to come join him, and I'm so glad he did. It was so nice meeting you guys face to face, James and your wife, and then all the questions were fabulous. I don't have good closing words. I just think don't get discouraged. Like Jeff said, no matter where you are in this process, just take it one day at a time and do better than you did the day before. That's the most important thing. And eventually you'll be where you want to be with your budget personally and in your business. And just good luck to all of you. And I hope that we can meet in person someday.
Yeah, we'll come to the Philippines. James, what's your wife's name?
Cynthia.
Cynthia? Yeah, we didn't ever catch that. But yeah, it's been great to see you guys, Cynthia and James, in person. Let me just remind you real quickly of the 4 things I spoke about and wrap it up. 1, don't let mistakes of the past or fear of an unknown future distract you from being happy and making progress forward. Make decisions based on belief and faith that everything will be okay. Number 1, it never pays to compare ourselves to other people. That destroys our happiness. Number 3, we're all a lot more alike than we are different. We have a lot of differences, and I won't, I'm not trying to minimize the differences that we all have, but we're all in this together. We're all, crossing the same path of discipleship. We're all walking in the same roads in a lot of ways. So we are not alone. And your discouragement and your feelings of challenge are, not unique. We all have those challenges and issues. And obviously we all have our own individual and unique heartaches, but start now. It doesn't matter if you're 15 or 65. Start saving now. Pay yourself first. After your tithing, the first thing you do is pay yourself. Start with 10% of your income monthly, and then try to grow it. Every year, try to grow it a little bit. If you do that consistently over, 5, 10, 20 years, that will become a massive blessing to you in your family life and in your business. Create an emergency fund in your family and in your business. Your business should be able to hopefully operate for a couple of months without a lot of cash flow, because markets are cyclical and things do get disrupted. Look for opportunities in disruption. We're facing great disruption right now, and that means there's going to be a lot of opportunities, but there'll also be a lot of heartache and hard things coming. Like Sally said, we're rooting for you. We believe in you. We appreciate being on this Zoom call. We hope it was beneficial. Thank you for joining on a Saturday morning. And like Sally said, we hope to come see you in person sometime soon.
Thank you. Thank
You,
you.
you have our votes, Jeff, for governorship. We wish you would be our governor here.
Yeah, thank you.
You're not
Yeah.
for president in the Philippines.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, we'll see what my future holds. And I'm excited for the future and I'm optimistic.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. We have truly been blessed. Please do know that we have been receiving a lot of comments, how very inspiring this morning has been. And we need this. We need this. We thought that, after a while, everything will be better. But now we're now beginning to understand this is really for a very, very long time, maybe. But and so we need this. We need all of this reminders and inspiration. And you have proven to us that simple things is the Lord's way of blessing us. And if we just be faithful in those simple things, those correct principles, our lives will truly be blessed. And you have exemplified that. You have lived that, and now you're sharing that to the rest of the world. And so
No one's perfect. No one, but the more consistent we can be in the small and simple things,
right.
the better. And that includes our finances.
That's
The
true.
better our lives will be.
That's a perfect one. That's perfect. Thank you for sharing that and showing that.
I was about to say we have our own Filipino version of your big book, except it's just a small notebook for us.
Yeah. And you have the envelopes.
Yeah, and envelopes and everything. But wow, that's wonderful. And for Filipinos to see that from you guys, because Filipinos easily think that they always start with a lot of money, and so they don't know anything about hardship. But you have proven something that's important for all of us here to know and understand. And so
Yeah.
it's really been
And I think, James, to that point, it's not about comparing, Life, we don't understand why you were born in the Philippines, while we were born here, why we were born in the gospel and others were not. Those are we will never have answers to those questions in this life. So there's no, and this is kind of why I say that to the Filipino brother and sisters on this call or that watch this, don't compare yourselves to anyone else. It doesn't matter. What matters is your relationship with God and how you're growing into the best disciple, the best entrepreneur, whatever it is that you can be. It's a competition with yourself. We need to have compassion for others. And, anyways, we look forward to coming and seeing you guys in the Philippines sometime soon.
Yeah, we will be glad to have you here,
Definitely,
Sally and Jeff.
definitely.
With your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully one of our kids will get called to a Philippines mission.
That would be great. That would be great. Wow. Well, we know that you have a very exciting basketball game that's going to be happening really soon. So we would like to thank you. Lloyd Gamba, who is with us, a member of our staff, will now be giving the closing prayer. And then we will officially end
we
this
will
one.
promote everyone.
So
you can just see.
If you have a few more minutes, Jeff and Sally, it's been our tradition to we call it promoting them as panelists, so you get to see some of the viewers and they get to say hi to you, and we can have a nice photo session, and then we'll
let you go.
We'll let you go. All right, so we'll do that. Lloyd, please, for the closing prayer.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this wonderful Saturday morning that we are able to attend this wonderful webinar with Jeff and his wife. We thank Thee for the additional learning that we are able to receive today. We are humbled to receive these basic principles that will help us to return to the basics, where it will help us greatly in making our savings. We ask you this time, Father, to bless every one of us, that as we face this pandemic and crisis, we will be able to cope with, and that we will be able to make and create savings despite of the hardships. We ask you to bless every one of us, that we'll all be safe and that we will all be healthy. We ask you to bless Jeff and his wife and their family, that they can continue to inspire their people. And as well as every one of us here, that whatever we have learned will be shared to everyone. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thanks,
Amen.
Lloyd.
Thank you, Lloyd.
You're welcome.
So Lloyd will now promote as many of our attendees so that we get to see them and they get to say hi, and probably we'll have our photo op. We call this our virtual reunion. This is how we see each other now.
Yeah. Hard not to be able to be together, isn't it?
That's true. There you go. So please
These are
turn
the
on your
people who
videos.
watched and benefited from your words of wisdom.
Abish. Oh, this is great. Oh, wow. Sister Adelina, this is great.
Hey, guys.
Corazon. Sister
Yes,
Vivian.
hello.
Nice.
Morning. Hello.
Yeah, you can unmute and say hi. And oh, Ferdinand Obvious is still wearing his mask. Maybe he's outside doing this.
Building his reserve.
Doing his reserve.
Yeah, building my reserve. I'm working.
You're working. Great.
Working while you're listening. That's good.
Yeah.
Maybe we can
Thank you very much.
Sally,
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank
Good to see you.
Very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, thank you guys. Sister Jennifer Placent.
Thank you for Brother James and Sister James and all of you.
Yes, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Welcome.
guys.
That's a good looking group.
Yep.
Oh, thank you. All right, we'll have a quick photo op. I'll do a quick screenshot. So everybody smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more on the next page. All right, smile. 1, 2, 3. All right.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. We
Thank
got to run to the
you.
game. Thanks for having us.
Thank you
Yes.
so much,
Take
Sally.
care.
Take care.
Stay safe and healthy
Yes, and we hope to see you in the Philippines when all of this is
when
over.
COVID is gone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye. Mainit.
And then on this past,
Mamaya po meron po tayong 1 o'clock. Oo. So from savings to goat racing, yan po ang ating gagawin. Ganyan katindi ang ating discussion. From savings to goat racing.
building your reserve.
Oo, lahat na ho talaga kailangan nating matutunan para kung ano po ang ikalalago ng ating buhay.
Pangkabuhayan.
Kabuhayan natin. Guys, thank you so much. It's we know it's a Saturday, but alam naman namin na wala naman tayong mga masyadong maraming pupuntahan. Kaya maganda na nagkasama-sama tayo ulit ngayong bagang ito. So we will see you this afternoon, 1 o'clock. Irene Villanueva's presentation on sheep and goat production. We are excited for her. She is probably the most talented when it comes to agri.